So thank you all for coming. I'm going to turn it over to Richard Briggs. He's the Cub Master for Pack 201, as you can see behind his left shoulder. And when we were talking about Scoutbook, he said, well, you know, I've done a lot of investigating on how to make Scoutbook work for me. He's a Cub Scout leader, and he's done the ins and outs of doing Scoutbook for Cub Scout leaders. He's going to go over some of the basics and how they use it for Cub Scouts. There's a lot of overlap for how you use it with Scouts BSA too. And then Pete Simpson is going to walk us through how Scout leaders for Scouts BSA use it, especially in including the merit badge counselors. So, Richard?
Thanks, Pierre. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Go. Anybody not able to see the colorful the colorful screen there?
Kid jumping off the
yes, jumping off a perfectly good rock.
Yes.
All right. So this is just kind of a welcome to Scoutbook. Some of you have all sorts of experience with it. Some of you have no experience with it. My goal here is just to kind of go through some quick overview type things and really just start the discussion on how to best use it, how to get the most out of it. So let's go ahead and if Zoom would get out of my way. There we go. So we're going to talk a little bit about signing up and signing in, some basic navigation roles within Scoutbook, recording things, and sort of reports and lists. And that should be plenty to go over in the space of time that we have. Now, so Scoutbook is basically scouting going all digi. Where it's a digital tool. It was developed by a scouter who had about 10 or 15 years in scouting, was aiming to make things easier, and then ultimately it was picked up by BSA and kind of rolled into the digital strategy. It's aimed primarily at mobile. You can do it on desktop. I find that the mobile experience is much easier because everything's actually all together where it's supposed to be. Whereas if you look at it in on a big screen, some things that you're looking for on the left-hand side are all the way in the top right corner, and you won't find them. So it's a little bit easier for me on mobile, like a tablet or my phone. It's a good way to stay connected with not only your people in your units, but it also connects back to BSA's kind of back end. So when you have leadership changes, when you have a registered leader, it gets verified. When you have a scout that's paid their dues, it gets verified. And so that, now there are some hiccups that can happen there, but for the most part, it's pretty good about that. And then there's a number of different utilities for management. Like I said, moving people from den to den, or assigning leaders. You can use it for communication, send messages directly through Scoutbook to parents and leaders, tracking advancement, logging and planning events. So basically, if you go on a trek or a hike, you can log some of that activity, and then some of the financial stuff. Now, as I was going through Scoutbook today, I noticed that some of the things have changed very recently. So some of this information is actually moving to the Scouting's new advancement portal. So it's kind of in a state of flux, but most of these are basics that you'll be able to take on, and you'll see where the overlap is. It'll direct you to the correct website if they've moved that particular part. Now, logging in for me in the past was a headache because I didn't realize that login is case sensitive. Your username is actually case sensitive. I tried to put my username in, I typed it all lowercase, and it went, no. And I went, why? Because I happened to capitalize my first and last name when I did my login originally on scouting.org. So lo and behold, that reared its head when I tried to do this. And that's just one tip. The other tip is if you do try to log in, try to use your username and not your email address. It may say you can use your email address. And if it asks you to re-put it in, refresh the page before you put it in again. That's one thing that I've learned works really well. They give you a prompt there, but most people don't read those prompts. They're like, oh yeah, I got it wrong. I'll just try again. They're actually telling you to refresh the page. Den leaders, there's actually a Den leader exclusive page that actually helps with planning adventures and helps with scheduling and all that sort of thing, all sorts of resources aimed directly at Den leaders. It is linked to, so your login, if you are not logged in or registered as a Den leader, and it's been my experience that you don't have access. Now that may have changed. I was the Cub Master. I didn't have myself as a Den leader on anything, and I couldn't log in for the life of me. I had the hardest time. I was like, why does not this work? And then I put myself as an assistant Den leader, and boom, I got access. I was like, oh, well, because I'm the admin on our Scoutbook account. So just a few things about login to know. It does use your scouting account. So basic navigation. I'm just going to actually swap over to the Scoutbook site and log in, and we'll take a quick tour. Let's see here.
Richard, while you're doing that, when I was following along what you were saying, and I was trying to download it from Google Play, and it doesn't say Scoutbook, it says Scouting.
That's another good point. There's actually two things to know about Scoutbook interface. The Scouting app, you're right, the Google Play and Apple Store or App Store, they have an app for Scoutbook, and that's generally for entry for parents and scouts. There's some minimal functionality on there. It's better to sign in to scoutbook.com to use the tools. Especially as leaders, the tools are going to be much more helpful by just going to the site itself, even on mobile, especially on mobile, scoutbook.com. The app itself, the one you download, is better served as a tool for your participants in your program. It's a really good point, and one that I totally intended to make on that first slide and didn't. So thank you for bringing that up here. So when we get here, there's a number of things that you can do. It looks very vanilla, very plain. Help resources are really good. You can go through, contact the admins there. There's some forums in here. Some of them are pretty good. I don't really engage with the forums very much. What I tend to stick to, a number of these are actually just links back to that advanced scouting advancement page that's kind of starting to become more prevalent. But I like the dashboard. This is my live pack, so we'll see what's going on. There we go. So I have a couple of views set up in my dashboard. You can see I have my unit. You can have multiple units here. My family, so my son Jackson's here. and then my den, because I am registered also as the assistant den leader for this den. So I can go in and work on the various different things within each of these. So I can get really quick to, to the cubs in my den, or I can take an overall look at the whole pack, and we'll see that each den is available. You have a pack roster, the ability to send those messages, do some quick entry of various different things, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Run reports, all this sort of back end stuff that you might want, and then it'll show you that this is linked to the council. This will show you your calendar, your upcoming events. Now we're still trying to get everybody working on entering their events in Scoutbook. We have a separate pack website that we've used for a number of years, and it's supposed to plug in, and we're working on melding them together. So this hasn't been updated for us, but when den leaders enter events, they'll show up, their pack meeting or their den meetings will show up in here. When there's a committee meeting, all those sorts of things, they show up in your events. I'm going to go ahead and drill into one of the dens. You can see who the leaders are. Those little icons tell you what this user has in way of administratorships. So I'm the den administrator, I'm the overall pack administrator, and then I've been verified by the unit. Yes, I do exist. I am actually who I say I am. In addition, you'll see these little links. These little links are saying that this scout is linked to a parent, the verified parent. And then you also have this little A with the circle, and that's the advancement is syncing with the BSA national database. So lots of stuff going on. It's all the little bibs and bobs. I'll go in and drill in a little bit further, and we'll see that if there is someone who's been added but hasn't yet responded, my wife has basically told me I'm in charge of Cub Scouts. So she has not responded to this email that invited her to link to Jackson's account, so that link stays open. Yeah. Probably zoom in, make it a little easier on everybody. You can see advancement that's taken place, all the different adventures, awards, different logs. You can log payments. We don't use the system for it, but some units do. And kind of go through and do tracking and all that sort of thing. So that's kind of the quick navigation here. So what can different users do? So as Pierre brought up, there is an app. That app is called the Scouting app. It's a little red backdrop icon with the Scouting fleur-de-lis and eagle. Oops. Just like this up here. And that that'll allow you to enter in different achievements. The Scout can enter them in if you're in Scouts BSA, or the parents can enter them in as well, and then that goes to whatever the assigned leader is, and the leader can then go through and verify and just say, yeah, that sounds correct, verifies it, and then it gets put into kind of a holding pattern. And we'll talk about reports later, where you can kind of use that information, those different phases, to create lists for shopping and such. Leaders need to go in and verify and set it to verified, and then that'll go into needs awarding status. Now, I'm not real familiar with the merit badge side, so volunteers who are doing uh, merit badge stuff. Uh, Pete, do you want to chime in on that, or do you want to kind of wait and do that as a separate module?
Why don't I talk about merit badges when you're talking about entering individual advancements?
Sounds good. All right. So, recording activities. Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways to record activities within Scoutbook. Scoutbook allows you to do manual entry. So you go into one Scout and you put that they did this, 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 and this, and enter in any service or camping or hiking. I think that sort of stuff has all moved over to the advancement site within scouting.org, but all the rank advancement and achievements, those remain in Scoutbook. So let's take a look at doing this. So if I come in here and I want to go ahead and do some advancement, I'll select the program that he's working on, and then we'll go through and we'll select, what skill he was working on. Which one was it we were going to use? This one. So it'll bring up the requirements, which is really nice because previously you had to have like the leader book to have the requirements there that you would have to go flipping through and find the correct page and all that. Now you just select it and boom, all the requirements are right there. So you can do this by just selecting that checkbox, entering it in, and listing it as approved. You can do it piecemeal. So if you do one requirement at a time, you can do it that way as well. Enter in the date. Be sure to check off leader approved if you're the leader entering it in. Otherwise, your recording gets weird, and you have to go back and figure out when you did it. But once you put it in here, so say a parent puts something in, or the scout, they're going to be marked as completed. This little green check mark. Once a leader approves it, so it comes to you, you can approve it. You hit it, and it's got this blue check mark. Now your awards chair wants to see is all the blue check marks. They want to know when they're ready to buy something, right? When they're ready to go get that thing that that your scout worked so hard to earn. So you want to make sure that it's in this blue status ahead of your purchasing excursion, and then once they print it out and they go and buy it, then you can mark it as a warrant, and then that's already off your books. You don't need to plan to purchase it anymore, and it's ready to go. And we'll go into that a little bit later when I go into reporting. Go ahead, Pete.
Richard, can I add some context for the Scouts BSA and adventuring leaders? So this system works the same way in all levels of scouting, but you might have different people doing the different tasks. So your den leader, like Richard Briggs showed you that he's the assistant den leader for his den, and he's also marked as a den admin. That means that he can mark that as approved. But unless you're an admin, you can't actually get it to that blue check mark phase. So right. Especially in like a Scouts BSA troop, you might have a bunch of ASMs who are entering advancement for Scouts, and they can do it in the Scoutbook app, but that's not going to be marked approved right then, because then your Scout's going to go to your advancement chair, and they're going to show them their book and make sure that it's signed off in there, and that's when they'll mark it off as approved. Now, not every troop is going to do it the same way. Maybe you have all your ASMs marked as an admin for the patrol they're working with, and then they can enter the advancements for that patrol. Or maybe there's some other configuration of leaders that you use in your troop or your crew or wherever. But it's the same process for each, except the advancements are going to be different. Instead of bear, it's going to show up as tenderfoot, and instead of showing all those adventures, you're going to see merit badges. By the way, if you're about to move on to another subject, I can talk about how merit badges fit into this advancement page.
Before I move on too far, I want to point something out I missed in the navigation portion.
Okay.
And that's this top row. This top row is super important in Scoutbook, because my knee-jerk reaction is to use this back arrow in my browser, or use this little back arrow. That literally goes to the previous page, no matter what you did. If you're trying to get back to, say, your list of your scouts, you can actually click. Each one of these is its own individual level in the hierarchy. So I've drilled all the way down into the cyber chip. And then before that was awards. And before that was my son. And before that was the den. So I can click here and go all the way back to the pack in one click. And so that's a really handy trick for navigation, especially if you're doing multiple entries and you don't want to go all the way back, or you didn't want to get back to that same scout. You wanted to just go up a level now that you've marked it off. You can do that. So go ahead, Pete, if you want to talk a little bit more about how merit badges.
Hey, Pete, before you talk about merit badges, I had a question.
Okay.
So you were mentioning for Scouts BSA and doing the requirements, one way of doing it is, having the ASM check it off in Scoutbook and then have the advancement chair review the book. So I was curious, is there a recommended, what is the official ground truth for requirements for your ranks? Are we still expecting to have sign-offs in the book, or will Scoutbook be the new official that's officially signed off?
Right now, it's still highly recommended that you be signing off the scouts in their handbooks. The handbook is an important resource for scouts, not just because it's a tracking sheet for their advancement, but also because it's got a lot of actually very important information for them to use throughout their scouting experience. So, we want those books to stay an important part of the scouting experience. So, the way that I've been recommending is that you have ASMs or another leader that's working with scouts on advancement, and they put in what they work on a scout with into the Scoutbook.com interface, and they also go ahead and sign it off in their book. And that is double tracking, but what it does is you can still instill the scouts with a sense of responsibility for tracking their own advancement while having that backup that's stored online in a place where it can't be lost.
How do we sign books during this period where we don't meet?
Yeah, I mean, definitely COVID-19 has introduced some more complications to that, where you might not be able to sign books right now, and that's fine. You can sign them when you get back together, especially if especially if it's important to the scouts that they have that physical record, and I think for some it is going to be important. But for now, if you're talking about dealing with virtual meetings, then just using Scoutbook is a perfectly fine solution.
Hey, Richard.
And this is a way to countersign, right? Because you have your entry from the scout or the parent or whomever on the one side that's that green check mark, and then you have leader approval on the opposite side, which is that blue check mark, that next level up. So,
Pete, is there a similar level, two level at the Scouts BSA level?
Yes, it's the same process where you can have a leader put in an advancement, and then you have a troop admin, maybe which is for most troops, probably going to be their advancement chair, who is actually approving those advancements. And then you might have a third person if you have somebody who's not the advancement tracker who does the purchasing, that would be actually going in there and compiling the purchase order to go get stuff from the store. But I think that Richard will talk more about that purchase order process later.
So let me just do a process check here. Most of the people on the call are merit badge counselors, so we do want to get to the merit badge, but we do have some Cub Scout leaders here. So if you could hit the high points of the Cub Scout leaders, that'd be good.
Sure. So let me go ahead. Am I still sharing or?
I was sharing because I was just going to show the exact same. I wanted to cover it right now because it's the same page that you were just talking about.
Yep.
It's for Scouts BSA. So do you mind if I just show that really quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So if you look at the screen, you can imagine you're a Scouts BSA leader. So you'll notice that this page is for troop 14, little Andrew test. And if we open up Andrew's advancement, you'll notice that it's a very similar page to the one you just saw in the Cub Scout pack. Except instead of those their Cub Scout rank, we're looking at their Scouts BSA ranks. So we have the ranks up there, which work just the same way, where the different advancements can be, or the different requirements can be signed off individually or as a whole group. And then we have these merit badges down here. Now you'll notice that not every merit badge is showing up, unlike the ranks, and that's because before you can have a scout working on a merit badge, it has to be added to their profile by clicking on this Start Another Merit Badge button down here. This can be done by a troop admin, by a scout, or by a parent, anybody who's connected to the Scouts account. And that's because it's just like saying you want to start a merit badge. A scout can say, I want to start a merit badge, and the first step is first step is deciding they want to do it after researching the badge, and then they've got to talk to their scoutmaster. So if they add it to their profile, they're not going to be able to work on it until it gets approved by a troop admin, which could be the scoutmaster or the advancement chair. But we want to make sure that conversation with the scoutmaster happens. So, and we still want them to get a signed blue card. Now, right now, because of the restrictions on getting together in person, a virtual blue card is acceptable, including just using the Scoutbook by itself. But again, the main benefit of using this system is that you have this virtual, unlosable record of their achievement. So after they've gotten their approval to start the merit badge, they can be connected to a merit badge counselor, just like if they were getting a blue card with a merit badge counselor recommended on there. And there's two ways for that to be done. The first, which I'm going to show you, is for the troop, a troop admin to actually go ahead and connect a merit badge counselor to them. That would be like the process of a scoutmaster recommending somebody. So
does that only work if the merit badge counselor is in the same unit, or will it work, across units?
No, it will work for any merit badge counselor who is approved in Scoutbook.com from any council. So.
Oh, okay. So there's a full national registry of merit badge counselors embedded in this?
Yes, and I'll talk about how to access that a little later. But so you'll notice that that just a second ago, the video clicked invite counselor on the merit badge. So once you've added the merit badge, it gets added to the list that the scout is working on. And then it shows up on, and you can click on the chest merit badge, which is this one, and it will show you that Andrew has not completed any of it yet. So again, the unit can mark these off, if they're marked off on the blue card by the counselor, or they can invite the counselor to mark them off themselves. So you can invite a counselor by clicking that invite counselor button, and it will show you the people that they have been, that they are connected with already. So you saw those connections on Richard's son earlier. Those were the parents are always connected, and they're also leaders connected. But So the first step is to connect the merit badge counselor to the scout by clicking Add on the connections page. There we go. Okay. So, and then once you find the person that you want to add to their profile, you want to add that connection and then mark them as the merit badge counselor. Now they might also be a different kind of leader for that scout. Maybe they could be a family member already and have a connection that way, or they could be a leader in the unit and be connected to the scout that way. But for them to be able to actually make changes to their merit badge record, they're going to need to have the merit badge counselor box checked. And that's how merit badges work for the unit on the Scouts individual advancement page. I will talk a little bit more about that merit badge counselor list and this same process, but from the merit badge counselor's perspective, a little bit later after Richard has shared more of what he has to share.
All right.
So you can go ahead and take back the sharing, Richard.
I shall. So let's go ahead and jump back in. So that's really good information. Those were all manually done that way. There is another way to record activities, and this will be by doing quick entry. Quick entry is my favorite way of doing things because I can take, say, this whole den, and I come down to where it says quick entry. And let's see, we'll choose from the list and I'll hit enter rank requirement. And there'll be a number of different requirements. These are kind of all the requirements for the wolf rank. And say I wanted to do that cyber chip award. I would have to go in and select the date completed, the cyber chip award information, and then I would go through and select who all attended that meeting that we signed everybody off at the same time. And you can do bulk entry that way. Now, if it isn't, let's see here. I'm not sure why exactly it's not allowing me to select anybody, but it's probably because I'm.
I don't think you put a date in. That probably waits for the date.
Yeah, it might. Let me see if I do it this way. You can also do quick entry for a number of other things too. So you can do it for the pack as well. See if I can.
So that's all wolves, regardless of what den they're in?
No, this is actually the full list. And then what it's showing is actually anybody that is eligible for that. So what it'll do, if somebody already has something, it will already gray them out. Or if they're not eligible for it because they're at a different rank or whatnot. So you can see, it has some logic behind it. I'm not sure exactly why that wouldn't let me do the wolf one for my wolf den, but that may have something to do with the date. So, but that, for me, that's the easiest way. And checking that box that says leader approved is super, super, super important. I know I've said it like 3 times. I can't tell you how important it is, especially when you go to what will be my next topic, which is reports. So if I go into, say, my needs approval report, some folks are better than others at approving things. So you might have one or a few say they did a bunch of, individual sign-offs all at one time, or you end up with like 41. If you do them all as individual sign-offs, so if you have an A, B, C, D, and E within a requirement and you sign off each one individually, they all pile up. So quick entry makes things a lot easier. I make a habit out of not approving my own son's awards. I let his den leader do it. That's just because I want to make sure that people don't think I'm just signing stuff off for him. That's just a personal preference for me. But as you can see,
best practices, yeah, good.
But some of these, what happens is the overall requirement gets signed off, so the adventure itself gets signed off, which doesn't automatically sign off everything underneath it. So some of these are just left hanging here. So you just got to be good at, going through and checking and making sure that you kind of clean up those loose ends. Because I guarantee some of those are from like September, and it's like the A, B, C, D, and E of requirement 2 of like the second adventure we did, which is signed off, approved, and awarded already. Now that brings me to the other report here that we use quite a bit in our pack, which is the needs purchasing report. This is pretty cool. If any of you have ever done the shopping for your unit, you know what it is to have a list from somebody send it in an email here and a text message here. Somebody sent you a spreadsheet and nobody put it on the spreadsheet the same way and all that stuff. When you do the needs purchasing report, these are anything that has been approved by the leader. So it's already been signed off. It's already been entered, signed off, and now is pending purchasing. And you now have a shopping list for your entire group. And you can do it all in one fell swoop. Check it off as you get it. You can print it out, create a PO for the Scout Shop, and super easy. I did this just prior to COVID. I think for our blue and gold dinner we had a couple of odds and ends that were still outstanding for our second year Weeblos getting their Arrow of Light, and had to go and kind of pull some things, and I printed it out, made it super easy to do this. So I think that's one of the biggest pluses here. There's other reports that you can run. I encourage you to go look through them. I'm
Can I
not
make a comment?
super experienced. Go ahead.
Sorry to jump in.
Please.
That purchase order is a little bit of a misnomer. It really is a shopping list.
Yeah.
It's not a purchase order in the sense that, like, if you're used to a purchase order from work, you can't transmit it to council and it starts a process. It's a shopping list you can print out and then hand to them, or save it as a PDF and email it to them. There's no process there. And my experience is when you're done with your purchasing, you effectively have to delete it. There's not a history of, well, what did I buy 3 Court of Honors ago? So it's like a one-time shopping list and then it's gone. I'm hoping that's an area for near-term enhancement. It is great for the shopping trip, but it doesn't have any of that tracking you'd expect from something called a purchase order, especially when it gets a purchase order number. That kind of implies that it's part of like an accounting record.
Yeah, it sounds like that they're trying to build it in. I think my wards chair had a similar experience. So yeah, definitely not alone in that one.
So when you have that purchase order ready, you can email it to the Scout Shop at trading.post@vhcbsa.org, and they will know from the information that's on there how to get everything ready for you to pick up and get out of the Scout Shop fast when you come in.
And the other thing I'd offer, this is Robert Augenstein, is that I think seen that my records have stayed, Jim, but it was important after each purchase order got fulfilled to close it. And I didn't learn that with the with the first purchase order report, but I did learn it with the second one because it printed everything I had on the first plus added all the new things that should have been sequentially second in the process. So there is a step for closing it after you've gotten your order fulfilled. And when I've taken that step, then it's preserved it and you can go look it up in Scoutbook and it correctly reset everything to 0 so that the awards for the next time period were an accurate set instead of a double set.
Yeah, I've seen and done the close, and it does do a great job of resetting so that you don't accidentally buy the same awards twice. I've just never been able to then go find that old purchase order again, which is why I was characterizing it like you've deleted it. But if there's a history of past purchase orders, maybe I've just missed that all this time.
So I'll look and see if I can recreate it, and if I sort that out, I'll drop you a note.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think that was my last. Oh, rosters. You can also export your roster here, which can be very helpful when you're trying to check people in, make sure everybody's there. You can also take attendance. That's a few things that you can also do within the reports and lists within Scoutbook. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it back over to Pierre, and I think that's my long and short.
Any specific questions about the Cub Scout side of Scoutbook for Richard?
I did have a comment on the last page. I noticed, as the district training chair, I did notice that there was a YPT report. I would encourage everybody, no matter what program they're into, to check that periodically and make sure your people are up to date on their YPT status.
That particular button there will actually push you over to scouting.org. So you'll still be using the same tool that you normally would use to track that. A number of these are links to other scouting properties, web properties.
Right, it goes right to my.scouting.org.
Correct.
And if you are a key 3 in the pack or in the troop, then you can use the tools that are there to get a YPT status report. Yep, thank you. Okay, Pete, we've got a lot of merit badge counselors here, and we also have some Scoutmasters and assistant Scoutmasters. Can you walk us through some of the nuances for Scouts BSA on this? And I got to tell you, while Richard was talking, I was on scoutbook.com, and I don't see where I would get in as a merit badge counselor.
Okay, so did you log in with your my.scouting credentials?
I did.
Huh. Okay, well, there are some differences between the Cub Scouts and Scouts BSA tools in Scoutbook, but not really very many. When you think about it, they're very different programs, but the fundamental tracking elements in Scoutbook are pretty much the same. Instead of dens, you have patrols. Instead of adventures and ranks, you have ranks and merit badges. And so you're really able to translate pretty much all of that, including the needs purchasing report. All that stuff is the same in Scouts BSA as it is in Cub Scouts. The big thing that's different is the merit badge counselor functions. So I'm going to share my screen here. And the first thing I'm going to show you, because there was a couple leaders that were interested in the merit badge counselor list, is I'll log into my account. Now, as somebody who's not a unit leader, my Scoutbook access is pretty limited. There are some council level tools, like I can send a message to all of the people in Scoutbook. I can look at the forums and all that, but I don't have a unit to access, so there's not a lot going on. But this should be the same on everybody's on leader profiles as it is on mine. So if you're a Scoutmaster, a member of the Key 3, or a troop admin, you might have this button, Merit Badge Counselor List, either on your profile here or on the troop page at the bottom. And what this is it's a search engine. You can look for a specific merit badge. You can type in a zip code and look for nearby merit badge counselors. This is a tool designed for Scoutmasters and advancement chairs to find the people that they need to connect to the Scouts. So it's not something that everybody can just get on and look at, particularly because it has contact information for volunteers. So if you have a Scout that comes to you as a Scoutmaster and says, I really want to work on my chess merit badge, you can go onto that and search for a merit badge counselor to recommend to them. And then you can connect them to their profile once they've made a connection, if that makes sense. And then the other thing about merit badges is merit badge counselors. So if you're a merit badge counselor and you've been approved by our advancement committee to be a merit badge counselor, you should be registered with that position, and so it should automatically give you some tools when you log into Scoutbook. So you just log in the normal method and you use your my.scouting.org credentials. And if you want to check to see if it's actually properly on there, you can go to your dashboard, click on your account, which has your picture next to it, and then My Positions. You should see a merit badge counselor position on there. And if you don't, then you should reach out to either Cheryl to see if you've been approved, or you can reach out to the office and we can look it up on your profile. And if it's not on your profile, then we'll send you to Cheryl. or tell you to apply to be a merit badge counselor.
So the picture is there if you update your profile?
That's true. If you don't have a picture on your profile, it'll just be like a circle. Yeah. So, but it's the My Profile button is what you want to press. Or sorry, My Account button is what you want to press on your dashboard. And then My Positions after that. So the next thing is if you want to connect to a Scout. So if you're connected to a Scout, they'll show up right on your homepage and it will say, these are your Scouts that you're working with on merit badges. But if you haven't connected to them yet, then the system doesn't know that you're working with them on the merit badge. So if a Scout came to you and said, hey, I would like to work with you on the merit badge, you can start that process. It has to be approved by their unit and by their parent, but you can start the process. And the way you do that is by going to My Connections, again, under Administration, My Account, and then and then you click My Connections, and you can add a connection using the red Add button, and you can search for a Scout, either by their last name or by their member ID. And then you just mark which merit badge you'll be working with them on, and then click Submit, and they'll get a message, their parents will get a message rather, and their unit will get a message saying, hey, this merit badge counselor is trying to connect. And once they verify with the Scout and the parents that it's all good, you'll be able to actually go in to their merit badge record and mark the requirements that you've done with them. Same way that you would initial an individual requirement that you've done with them on that blue card. So any questions about either the merit badge counselor list for leaders or the process of adding a scout to your connections as a merit badge counselor?
Pete, this is Pierre. I'm currently in my Scoutbook account and I don't see anything under my positions. Should I have been my merit badges that I'm a counselor for, should that have been entered in, or is there something I need to do?
It should have been entered in. I don't want to go, obviously, because I'm sharing my screen right now, I can't go digging around in our membership records, but it might be a better thing for me to troubleshoot with you individually.
That's fine. Yep, I was just trying to follow along with what you were doing.
Because if it's not listed in your positions, then it's a problem with your record not putting your merit badge counselor status into Scoutbook correctly. So I'll have to look at your record and stuff to figure out.
Oh, so when it says add positions, I can add the merit badges that I'm a counselor for?
You can, but unless you're approved on the list, it won't be confirmed. It'll just kind of be gray on your profile. Aspiration.
It's pending.
Oh, you can do that if you know you're approved, but it's not listed in Scoutbook. You can do that yourself. I thought that had to come from the council.
Me
You
too.
can add the merit badge counselor position or really any position to your profile, but unless it's approved either by the unit in the case of a unit position or by the council in the case of a merit badge counselor position, it won't afford you any access. And if you are approved, then it should have automatically been added to your profile when we uploaded the list. I can see if maybe it didn't for some reason. But again, I would want to work with you individually if
I'm
you're
not. Also, I'm not seeing on the homepage where you get to where it says, you can then go to my dashboard, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not seeing the merit badge counselor list or access there like you are.
Is it
Does
on
anybody else? I mean, that may just be me. If other people can see that on theirs.
If you go to
You
the
need to go to the
Troop
Troop
118
page, and it's like, let's say if you go to Troop 118,
Oh,
and then it shows at the bottom.
yeah.
okay. Sorry. It's just in a different spot than Pete's. Okay.
Yeah, I don't. Unfortunately, I don't have a troop page, so I can't. I can't
Okay.
go look.
Thanks,
there.
Humi.
I think that's why they show it for me on that page.
Pete, this is Maureen. When you are searching for a scout, do you have to have their member ID number?
No, you can also search by last name,
Last name will do it.
and it will show a list
So-
by proximity.
Okay.
So I also just did a search only providing the last name, and it said that I had to do the BSA ID number too.
Me too.
Oh, my apologies. I didn't realize that.
Okay.
But if a Scoutmaster links you or suggests you, or however that technically works, does something come into your proposed connections or something like that?
They will start showing up on your homepage as a scout you're working with until the merit badge is done.
But you have to accept them. I mean, if a Scoutmaster says, Pierre's going to do first aid merit badge with you and signs me up, unbeknownst to me.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I misinterpreted. You'll get a notification.
And then I have to accept that.
Yes.
Does a parent know how to get into Scoutbook to have to give permission for you to have a connection with their son?
Your parents have to have logged into their account, which and have be correctly connected as a parent to the Scout.
Okay.
It's
Can I touch on that for a moment, Pete?
oh yeah, absolutely, Richard.
So that's something that we struggled with this last year, was getting people to connect. We basically, every den meeting, every pack meeting, it was make sure you log into your Scout's Scoutbook account. Make sure that you sign up that connection. I actually went in as the administrator in Scoutbook and located parents who weren't automatically connected. Do not create your own profile for a parent if they don't show up automatically. Make sure that they don't exist in the system by contacting either the council or by going through the help section in Scoutbook, something. Because if you end up with a couple of different accounts for the parents, it is a pain to get rid of them. The errant account is super hard to get rid of. I have a parent that has twin boys, and I can't get rid of. She has like 3 or 4 accounts because she tried to sign up an account, and I had assigned her correct account, and it was a whole pain. Still is. So don't go creating extra accounts. Look for different variations of a parent's name. They should show up by proximity, and then you can link them.
Yeah, the process of Scouts being added to Scoutbook has improved a lot, I feel like.
Yes.
And so now that, now when you put in an application for a Scout, they'll be added to your Scoutbook, to your troop's Scoutbook record within 48 hours, I believe, of the submission. And they should be already automatically connected to their parents' email, and the parent will still have to log in to that account, but they'll be able to do that.
Yeah, and the parent app is really easy to use. It's not super hard. It just has the requirements. They tap the requirement and hit send, and that's it.
And it's an actual app. That's the one you get from the App Store, I assume. What you're talking about.
The Scouting app.
Which the Scouting app is designed for your parents to use with minimal extra stuff.
Yeah.
So once again, if we can't add a Scout, we should reach out to the parent and request that they add give us permission, or whatever you call it.
Yeah, they have to approve the connection.
Approve the connection. Okay.
So I wanted to point out this resource because I think it's so important. It's help.scoutbook.com. This is a database of basically frequently asked questions. It actually covers a little more than just Scoutbook. It covers internet advancement, which is a tool in my.scouting, which right now is just a light version of Scoutbook that kind of looks different, but it's the same interface really. It has the needs purchasing report. It has each individual Scout record. If you're using Scoutbook, you don't really need to go through internet advancement as far as I know. It also has some stuff for my.scouting.org, and it has some extra resources in here, which are just general information about the scouting program and the IT side of scouting. You can search for things that you need in here, like if you wanted to see how do I advance Weeblos, you can. There'll be a little article for just on how to do just that, and you can see there's all kinds of different entries in here. So I highly recommend you make use of this website. It also has a link to the scouting forums, which are the same ones in scoutbook.com, which have a lot of people talking about how to use the app and sharing best practices. It's a great place to connect with other scouters. Also, Roundtable is a great place to connect with other scouters all the time, not just when we're talking about Scoutbook. And you can also contact Scoutbook support directly through here. So you can mark what you need help with, put in your email so they can get back to you, and then you just type a message to them. Now, there have been some layoffs at National, which have slowed their response time somewhat, but the Scoutbook team is still very responsive. I tend to get a response from them within 24 hours anytime I reach out. So highly recommend, if you have an issue that you can't figure out using these articles, just go ahead and send them a message. And by the way, if you call me and say, hey, Pete, can you help me out with the Scoutbook? The first thing I'm going to do is come to help.scoutbook.com and type your question in, because I do try to know what I'm doing, but there's enough changes all the time that this is always the best resource for me to use. I don't mind you calling me though. I'm happy to help. And I wanted to show off really quick. I don't know how many Cub Scout leaders there are here tonight, but the Den Leader experience is a really cool tool. And I want to make sure all the Cub Scout leaders and commissioners know about it. This is like a test site, which you can log into anytime if you want to test out the Den Leader experience. It's leaderpp.scouting.org. And you can log in with a fake account, basically, and just see what it looks like. And it's basically just this really nice interface that lets you plan a den program just using all the
Add elective.
Except for some reason the pre-scheduled meetings have not been added to this one. So generally, it comes with you just put in your den's information, like the night that you meet, and the time that you meet, and it will create a whole schedule of den meetings matching that schedule that have the required adventures all ready for you to do as a den. And if your parents are using the scouting app, it'll show all that information to them. What is our den meeting? What elective requirement are we doing, or what required adventure we're doing? And it will give them all that information right in that app. You can also mark which requirements you didn't do at the meeting, and then ask the parents to do that with them at home, and we'll send them an email with all that information. It's just a very good way to, especially for new den leaders, to plan their meetings. So I wanted to show off this part especially. For every meeting that's created, it shows you a to-do list. So it'll say, before the meeting, you want to get these materials together. During the meeting, we're going to talk about a game that you'll play. You'll do some safety information. It has your opening ceremony. It has all this. And in each of these, it has instructions for how to do these activities as a leader for every item. And then after a meeting, it lets you or clean up the meeting area. Sometimes there's more information than that. And once you finish your after the meeting checklist and press submit, it will send an email to the parents saying, hey, this is what we did at the meeting. Thanks for coming. The next meeting is this, and this is when it is. And it will add all that stuff into that your Scouts ScoutNet or Scoutbook profile, so that it automatically enters everything. So I really wanted to show this off because it's so great for new den leaders and even for experienced den leaders, especially right now when it's difficult to plan program because of COVID-19. This can make the first step really easy, and then you can just start customizing this based on what kind of den meeting situation we run into.
Make adjustments from there.
Exactly. So I can't recommend enough the den leader experience.
Yeah, last year this was in beta, and I had one den leader that used it. But all of anything that he scheduled showed up in Scoutbook, where I showed you in that top right. It'll show kind of your upcoming events. That was something that would show up there. It was fantastic. I always knew when he was meeting, what he was doing, and so from a leadership perspective, that's that's a really cool tool to have too when people are using it.
Access this just by clicking login as den leader here at the top.
Oh, cool.
Yep, same login information, same credentials.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm looking at the time, guys. Can I show you one thing?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm all done. I don't know if Richard has more.
Absolutely not, Pierre.
Let me move your faces off my screen here. This is the Scoutbook page for Scoutbook Merit Badge Counselor, the Merit Badge Counselor Guide. It's help.scoutbook.com/knowledge-base/Scoutbook. Yeah. So if you just put in Scoutbook space Merit Badge Counselor in Google, you'll come up to this page. And this is a nice intro for if you're a Merit Badge Counselor, how to get in. When I went through this, like I said, I was confused. I was looking forward to tonight's meeting because I don't show up as a Merit Badge Counselor. So I'm going to have to check with Pete offline and find out why I'm not listed. But if you're interested in this little video and some guides, additions to the video, and some help stuff, this is a good place to start. Okay. Any other questions for our presenters? Yes, Les.
Well, I was just going to say a couple of things to add on to what Richard, thank you, Richard, for all that thorough information, and Pete as well. Just a simple reminder to everybody, you can do all that stuff, but if you don't hit save at the very bottom of the page, it doesn't happen. So make sure you hit save if you're ever logging advancement or doing any of that stuff. You got to scroll all the way down and make sure, you know, that you're doing that. Or sometimes you might have to hit edit. There's a couple of little things that'll tell you, oh, you got to default to this and that. So you just one pro tip there. And another thing was what we are trying to do, and this has been a struggle, Robert, you guys may not have this problem, but obviously Scout parents have the account, and that's who, you know, the Scout is listed under there, or guardians, whatever you want to say. But there's a place for the parent to also add the Scout's email. So if, especially in BSA, Scouts BSA, older Scouts, most Scouts now have their own email. We really try to use that a lot because we use Scoutbook as our email portal. The nice part about that is, from a youth protection standpoint, you can send emails to specific groups, to patrols or to certain leaders. You can send it just to parents. You can send it, you know, there's a bunch of good configurations you can do. And then it sends that to them through Scoutbook. So they don't send you back a direct, it doesn't give your email address, nor does it give their email address, only when it's put in by the parent. So it's sort of anonymous, but not, but it's a really good, safe way to communicate with everyone and blast it out. So we're using that for our weekly email blast. And it's a great way to get that word out so that you don't miss someone in a patrol. You know, every time you have to go hit, you know, the interface is a little clunky, but if you get it, if you do it, it's really good for that.
Thanks, Les. Yumi?
I just wanted to double check to connect to Scouts as a Merit Badge Counselor. The way to do it. A couple weeks ago, I connected to 3 Scouts in our troop. And then the minute I connected to them as a Merit Badge Counselor, my connection to them as ASM got cut off. I just could see their name, and all I could see was ePrep. It took forever to put me back as ASM connection. So I might have gone into from what Pete, what you just explained, but I think I might have gone into the Merit Badge section and add counselor, not like adding them to my connection first. Was that the reason why that happened?
It sounds like maybe when your connection got approved for them, the box for Merit Badge Counselor got checked, and the box for leader got unchecked.
Okay.
You have to be. You want to have both of those checked if you're both.
Okay.
I just saw that interface, and when I did it, when you add the role as a Merit Badge Counselor, it starts with a list of roles with all of the checkboxes empty. So even a pre-existing role that you had, like an adult leader, that form doesn't know that you already had that. And you might be in a mindset, or at least I was, that, well, I'm just trying to add this one role. And if you don't think, oh, let me also list all the other things I already have, it's very easy to break the relationship. I get broken relationships with the Scouts in Scoutbook through a couple of different mechanisms. So that's one of the things I'm usually on guard for.
So we can send you questions and you'll be able to answer them, Jim?
No, I can show you the areas where I pulled hair out. Like
Jim's a relationship
usually it's when
counselor.
you assign a Scout to a patrol that it's like, oh yeah, you lost them now. They're in a patrol.
Cool. Other questions for our presenters or anybody else?
So I've seen a couple questions come through other channels about folks' records in Scoutbook. So we're trying to move from the old Excel-based list we had to the format that Scoutbook requires, so that we can keep Scoutbook as updated as possible. So I know there's some anomalies. There's a few wrong IDs that have caused about 10 people, including Pierre, of course, to not be loaded. So
I was wondering if he was on that list.
Yeah, he's on the naughty list. So he just gave me a totally different number than what I tried to upload with. So I will,
Seriously?
yeah, so I will try that and try and get yours corrected now that I have that number. But give us a little time in the advancement committee as we kind of consolidate to one format, which will be to drive Scoutbook. That's our intention going forward.
Thank you, Scott Wadler, Council Advancement Chair.
Thank you.
Advancement and Recognition Committee Chair, sorry.
Yeah.
Other questions?
I have another question.
Yes.
So you're a merit badge counselor, you get connected to the Scout. As they work with you, you check off their incremental requirements as done. Eventually they finish. Do you still do a blue card? Do you do an electronic blue card? Or does the process no longer need the blue card? What happens when they're done?
So right now,
what should you do as the merit badge counselor when they're finished on a merit badge?
what can you do when they're finished? When you're finished,
Like electronically, is there a new step, or do you double entry it?
no, when you finished, if they complete every requirement, then the full merit badge will be marked as completed automatically, as long as it's saved. But then it goes into that needs approval report for the advancement chair of the troop to say, yep, I see that. I see that the merit badge counselor checked it all off. Now I'm adding it to the needs purchasing report so that we can buy it from the scout shop.
So the Scout book does not have the step where the Scout leader, the unit leader, needs to approve the blue card or the completion of the merit badge?
So that is the step, that is the troop admin approving it. Now, there's a couple things like that in Scoutbook where you as a Scoutmaster should be in contact with your troop admin to make sure that stuff's getting approved. But also that's why you should still have Scouts use that blue card, because it's a way for them to be responsible for their own advancement. The Scoutbook.com is meant to be a tool for Scouts to be able to see their advancement digitally, and for Scouts to be able to have, for troops to have a backup of that advancement data, but it's not a replacement for the physical items of advancement. Right now, obviously, we can't use physical in-person blue cards, which is why I believe it's one of the things in COVID-19 FAQ to allow for virtual blue cards and the use of Scoutbook exclusively. But typically, you want them still using that blue card so that they have that process of going to the Scoutmaster, asking, hey, I want to work on this merit badge, getting that recommendation, reaching out to that merit badge counselor, tracking their own progress and getting it initialed by their counselor, and then turning it in, getting that second signature from their Scoutmaster at the end.
Yeah, I still have all my blue cards from when I was in Scouts. They're all on a sleeve of, it's a cool keepsake, man.
Scoutbook's is not a replacement for those other processes. It's a way to augment tracking. It's like a replacement for whatever spreadsheet or troop track you were using before.
So Pete or Scott, would you recommend as counselors that if we engage some Scouts, if they start, that we should have the blue card saying we're underway and then get those to them? Or is there a, you know, because it's obviously easier for us to get access to blue cards physically than it is for the Scouts to right now.
I've been using the PDF form. If you Google blue card PDF,
Yeah.
there's a fillable one.
Okay.
You know, Adobe supports electronic signatures, so that's what I've been using the last couple months.
Thanks, Scott.
Yep, there it is. And so it comes out of some council. It's not, okay.
There's a couple flavors out there, but you need to find the fillable one because that supports, you know, my digital signature and the Scoutmaster's digital signature.
But that's on top of entering it in Scoutbook. That's as if that's the physical separate thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
So, Pete, so I'm a merit badge counselor, and I sign off on in Scoutbook that they've completed the badge.
Yes.
Do I get a record in my file somewhere?
I don't know off the top of my head. Let me look at the Scoutbook for merit badge counselors resource that Pierre shared.
He's going to the help desk.
It's what I do every time somebody asks me a question. Merit badge counselor.
Well, he's looking for that. Any other questions? Cool. I got to tell you, Richard and Pete, and Jim Fernier and all the others who weighed in, I really appreciate your sharing of your knowledge and your experience. This is new territory for me also. And like I said, I was stymied because I couldn't find my merit badge counselor status in Scoutbook, and I was waiting for this meeting to figure out what I was doing wrong. And it was my BSA ID. Thanks.
And it is just the tip of the iceberg. There's all sorts of stuff more than what we talked about. You please play around with it, get comfortable with it, because it's, you know, I don't think we're going backward. So.
No, definitely, we're not going backwards. And this is like any other new system. It will work out the kinks. The more you use it, the better you're going to get at it. I'm sure Jim Fernier, for example, knows what he needs to do to navigate around for what he's doing in the troop and as a merit badge counselor. And if you want Jim's email address so you can pester him, call me or send me a text and I'll send it to you.
Can I briefly share the inside scoop that they talked about with us back in February?
Sure.
When we met up in Texas on Scoutbook?
Yep.
There's a couple of things that I want to mention. The first is that they're really trying to change the way that they do IT development at the National Council, and one of the big ways is that they're not developing a system and then releasing it and then saying we're done and letting it get old and fall into disrepair. Instead, they're really working on a cycle of development where they're continuously improving Scoutbook and MyScouting and just trying to make things better. And I've really seen that in the MyScouting tools, and which is the tools that I use the most from the modern tool set. And I don't see Scoutbook every day because I'm not a unit leader, but I'm hoping it's the same way when you're using Scoutbook, that you see improvements that make your experience in it better. And you should continue to. The other thing is I did find there is a merit badge record keeping for merit badge counselors article that I posted in the chat. It looks like you have those records as long as you're connected to the Scout, and you can also save them so that you can maintain your own file if you get disconnected from the Scout for some reason.
You complete the merit badge.
Well, it doesn't automatically disconnect you, but the unit might if they're trying to clean up those connections on their Scouts.
Interesting. Okay. Can you disconnect from a Scout once you're done?
Yeah, you should be able to. You can control your connections, and you can't connect to a Scout without permission, but you can disconnect from a Scout without permission. Then the other thing that Garfield, the national director of Scouts BSA, told me is that there's a analogous tool like the Den Leader tool for Cub Scouts that's coming for Scouts BSA. But if I was gonna, if you think about it, who's the analog to a Den Leader in Scouts BSA?
SPL.
Yeah, exactly. It's an
Patrol leader.
SPL. It's a patrol leader. It's the youth leaders. So the tools that are coming for Scouts BSA in Scoutbook are actually tools for youth leaders, which I think is very exciting.
How cool is that?
Contact with their unit, ways to stay, ways to collaborate on advancement and planning patrol meetings, things like that. I'm very excited to see those tools.
Our Gen Z Scouts are going to love that.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else, folks? I'm conscious of people that have postponed dinner until this is over.
Oh, thank you.
Well, again, thank you, Richard, and thank you, Pete. Thank you, Jim, and all the others who have contributed tonight. I appreciate that. I only have one more question, and that is, Nate Brown, what's the background behind you?
That's our troop logo. And I don't know if you can see the whole thing.
You got a pine tree, you got a tent,
the host
and you got a
would have
rocket.
the host would have to pin spotlight me to
Here, I
see
can do
the
that.
logo. That was drawn by one of our artist scout parents. No, you can't see the whole thing. Here.
There you go. Oh, you got the bugle. That's your edition, I'm sure.
That's right. And we do rocket launching and camping and canoeing and kayaking. So one of our moms, who is a award-winning children's book author and artist, Tina Kugler, who wrote Snail and Worm, award-winning child's book. That's her drawing.
Outstanding, outstanding. Well, thank you. And on that wonderful note, we'll send you all back to your families. Thank you very much for participating. Hope to see you next month at Roundtable.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Hi, all.
Bye.
Thanks, Richard.
Thanks, Richard.